Hello and welcome again to the Hutchinson Veterans Outreach Program. Today I have Tim Burley with us. It's been a while, Tim. I know I can't say commander anymore because you've gone away a little bit from that position. You're still part of the Legion though.
Yes, I'm still the Veteran Service Officer, Post-Veteran Service Officer, and I'm still, I work with the finances of the Legion. And we still do veteran outreach, which I did as the commander. I think I have a little bit more time to work on the veteran solutions to problems now than I did to the American Legion solutions to problems.
Nice.
And Diane Jankowski, who took over as commander, is doing a great job on that front of keeping it moving. Get a little bit more freedom to get out and get our hands dirty and make sure veterans are treated the right way.
I've always done really good out in the field with everybody.
You know, it's interesting because you go through, you know, in this world, you're into the fundraising effort because you can't do anything not-for-profit wise without funding. And
Yep.
Saluting Community Heroes here in Hutch has kind of filled that and worked on that. But in the end, it's always been the outreach part of it and, you know, dealing with these young men and women, or even, I can't say young women. I mean, we're dealing now, most of the crisis is coming from our senior citizen veteran section.
Yep.
And as we were talking before, part of the issue we're having is a lot of the senior veterans' spouses. And that's male and female. We have women who served and who are in their 60s and 70s, aren't familiar with the programs available, or they're not sharing information. So we had recently had a Vietnam veteran pass away. And he had benefits coming to him and was in the middle of the VA working with all these benefits, and the VA messed up some paperwork or got something wrong and took a lot of money out of their bank account, and he had passed away, so it left her with nothing. And so it's scary because she had no idea of the family resources, what benefits her husband qualified for. Agent Orange is now a presumptive 100% disability, so there was no question there. It took us about 3 weeks to, we're talking $14,000, $15,000 to get switched back and put back into an account because the federal government messed up.
Yep.
And that's largely on our responsibility. I mean, we have veteran service officers, Jim Lauer and Cassandra Kerrigan, both here, and they come to Hutchinson and take your spouse with you and sit down and go through the benefits. I mean, there's death benefits we get calls on every day. How am I going to bury my partner? How am I going to bury my veteran? There are programs out there for this.
Exactly.
You just have to take the
Time?
yeah, and reach out. Mm-hmm. In fact, my wife and I are guilty of it. We have to share passwords because we use everything on apps. And so, you know, on my computer is a file that says, here's all my passwords, here's all of our accounts, all that, and you have to let them know that exists.
Exactly, exactly. So it's not just a matter of telling the veteran what benefits they have. It's also reaching out to the family of the veteran.
Correct.
Because sometimes it is the daughter or the son of the veteran that has to deal with all this.
And there's the daughter and the son of veterans who also have college benefits and stuff that they could be totally missing out on by not being aware of the programs out there. I mean, when you have a 100% disabled, even 90% disabled veteran, and they're part of your life, you should check into those benefits that the family or that are received. So that's my stump today. It's been a busy winter.
Yeah.
Finishing some of our training, so we just at the Eagles Healing Nest, and you're very familiar with that, and I think Hutchinson's very up in Sauk Center.
Yep.
We incorporated the peer recovery coaching classes, which is a certification for working with people who have had addiction and alcoholism, which is unfortunately a large part of our veterans right now. And interesting in that class, we have 23 million addicts or alcoholics in our country every day.
Wow.
We have services available for 10% of them. So only 10% of them with alcohol or drug rehab or peer counseling or that kind of thing. So we cover out of that 23 million, 230,000, that would be 10%. And of those, 50% will wash out in the first year and reuse. So we're putting a lot of money into
A system that doesn't seem to be working right.
No, we can't put somebody in a 30-day corner and say, you're going to come out of this and be recovered. And I was just with a homeless veteran who came up to the Eagles Healing Nest. By the way, the Eagles Healing Nest is full right now, which we've never seen before. The financial crisis out here is harming veterans a lot. but he was a homeless veteran from Minneapolis. He had been 3 years since seeing his grandchildren because he was an addict and alcoholic. His use of drugs were cocaine and meth. He's now been at the nest for a week and a half. He's been completely sober and dry for that time. Changed individual. We're working on his physical, rebuild him. Because of course, when you're using drugs like that, your body so we work on that. We work on his mental state. But now with my coaching, I'm able to coach him and work him through. And a coach isn't the person who gives medications or says, tell me about your childhood. A coach is somebody who says you can do this.
Yep.
So we're in contact with them daily, if not every other day. Where are you? What can I provide you? What are the solutions? And that's the program we're finding that's the most beneficial for recovering addicts or alcoholics. And even the stigma of the words, but I'm going to use them because we're so used to them. Because we could use substance abuse, we could use all kinds of different words to describe it, but politically correct. Listen, we overuse alcohol, we overuse drugs.
Yep.
And many of our VA, the VA with opioids and that crisis. So the best way we're finding right now, and we're seeing a huge non-recidivism rate and healing rate at the nest, like 90%, as opposed to 10 to 18% at the 30-day programs. The issue becomes it's the coaching.
Yep.
It's having that person in your corner. And we forget about that because if you're coaching right and you're asking the questions, it seems simple. You ask a veteran who's been homeless for 3 years, and you say, what do you most want to accomplish? And you'd think getting a job, getting a home. No, his whole goal was to see his grandchildren. That's why he wants to dry out. Yep. And so we think, oh, you're homeless because of this. All he wants to do is see his grandchildren. And the drive for him to see his grandchildren is what's making him stay dry. Because he has some promises from his daughter. We worked with his family to say, listen, if he can stay dry for 30 days, can his grandchildren come visit? If he can stay dry for 60 days, can we do this? So we set goals. Yep. And we never know what's going to drive that person. Like I say, like he said, I can live in a cardboard box, I could care less. Mm-hmm. I can take food out of a dumpster every day, I could care less, but not seeing my grandchildren is killing me. Yep. So we have to be able to prioritize, and counselors don't think that way. They think of, oh, you're an alcoholic, we're going to do this, this, and this, that's going to solve the problem.
Yep. Sometimes not necessarily finding what is driving the problem, but finding what's driving the solution is where to get them.
Well, yeah, we talk a lot, and people always hear me say we need to instead of reacting, we need to respond. Yep. Reaction is something that we do and say, oh, you poor thing, you're alcoholic, you did this, and we blame everything, as opposed to saying, okay, you're an alcoholic, what are we going to do about it? Because there's a fix.
Exactly.
These are just like cancer or any other disease. We don't think they're fixable because we see people struggling for it. Mm-hmm. Same with weight loss, same with gambling addiction or anything like that. It's a challenge.
Exactly.
And I have someone close to my life who says, I'd love to lose weight. And I said, be patient because it took you how long to put it on?
Exactly.
And so, if you're losing a pound a day,
that's fantastic.
That's a pound a day versus, the 100 or 50 or whatever you put on in addition. Mm-hmm. And so, the mental health world is changing a little bit in the direction of trying to be supportive and I don't want to say a hand holder, it's more of the hand up. Yep. Okay, this went wrong. So everything we do as peer support coaches in the veterans world is based around their structure and their program, not ours. So when they say, I don't want to do that, we just, okay, let's find it. Or we ask the question, how's that going to work for you, when they have an idea that we might think might be a little bit out of the beaten trail. Yep. But there's just techniques you can use to get that information. So
that is fantastic. Now, you got this training down at the Eagle's Nest, correct?
Yes, it's put on by a company in the state that's licensed to do that called Bold North Recovery, and they decided with the 10%, we only have 2, so we actually had veterans in recovery in the class. The interesting part is I'm not in recovery. It's funny that the stigma, and this is how the stigma, I went to a recovery class and I got emails and letters and texts from people, I didn't know you were an addict. Mm-hmm. And I went, wow, this is exactly what we talked about in the class, is the stigma. Yep. And because I work with people who are, or coach people in that situation, all of a sudden I'm included in it. Now, we're all addicts in some form or another. I mean, if we smoke, we collect socks, we all have addiction.
Yeah.
And I'm not embarrassed by it. It's the point of we haven't learned how to identify that it's a disease. I know my dad struggled through alcoholism, and somebody said it wasn't that he didn't love you, he couldn't love you because he loved the alcohol. And saying that on a show like this is, it's the breaking the stigma.
Yep.
We criticize people who are going through this disease. Where we get critical is when they go through the disease, when they learn how to fix it, and then decide not to on their own accord. That's when we get maybe a little bit grumpy with them. And we have veterans who they fail out of the system.
Yep.
But we try to keep them back in and get them back into the system. They're going to come back. It just takes some time.
And sometimes it doesn't mean that just because you slip once or twice that you're not ever going to get there.
No, you could. I mean, we know pretty much for sure that somebody's going to slip back.
Yep.
It's always going to happen. The stressors are there. The problems are there. If we can get rid of the problems, and that's what we do with the Welcome Home Vet program at the Nest, and even in Hutchinson. This morning I got a call in Hutchinson from a young veteran who's just got out and he wants to be a teacher, a history teacher, and he called and he said, "Are there any resources for veterans?" Well, there are. So we, do some digging, I gave him a referral to St. Cloud State University, a veteran there who is a younger veteran who's actually going through their programs right now, and he's their vet coordinator for St. Cloud.
Nice.
And another, our old high school counselor from Hutchinson who now moves up by the Duluth area and is teaching up there, and he has his teaching credentials, so what better to refer him to than two veterans who work in the system and would know the programs available. So that's what we try to do, is link veterans up with, I get calls every day about service dogs. Where can I find a service dog? What are my qualifications for a service dog? Finance issues, name it. So we're here basically to answer those questions and help veterans transition back into this mess we call civilian society.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it's not always easy to do that. I mean, they don't give you the training when you're leaving the service to show you how to live out in the real world.
Well, no, we have talked about this before. 18-year-olds, you join the Army, the Navy, whatever, they provide you clothes, food, everything, basically tell you when to get up in the morning.
Yep.
And you came from a struggling situation, and what do? We move back right to the struggling situation. One of the courses we're teaching up that we added up at the Nest is developing character. And that was actually trained to me by Randy Exted and Dennis Parker, both who were dealt with. If you've seen the movie Friday Night Lights about the Texas football championship,
Okay.
they were both heavily involved as coaches, so they used character building as their training and took a team that had never been close to winning state in Texas. And we all know Texas is a football state.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Hutchinson. If Hutchinson loses a football game, it's close to the end of the world.
And everybody knows it.
And possibly it might be the closest thing to it. I suppose if we asked Andy or Rosbergs, they'd be like, yeah, but it's a fun sport. But it's interesting because we found that our coaches use the same techniques. It's developing character.
Yep.
So instead of reacting, we respond. We talk about discipline, pride. We talk about taking responsibility for your actions. Now we think discipline would be something every veteran would know.
Not necessarily.
Well, we do when we're wearing green, brown, black, and camouflage colors.
Well, we're also responding to how we're directed.
Very good. Exactly. So with companies out here, we work with a lot of the companies to go in and what is PTSD, what is TBI.
Yep.
We have a young veteran who is employable right now, but he has TBI episodes, so he gets really bad migraines for like half a day. Companies understand that. They say, well, he can work this day instead of, if he has that, he can make up on a Saturday shift.
Nice.
So we're getting more and more companies. We know that in Minnesota, we're suffering for employees.
Oh, yeah.
We have veterans who are fully capable of working if the company understands that they might need 1 day a month for a VA appointment or that kind of thing. So what's the trade-off? You have a full-time employee who's early for work, who comes to work, who has a vehicle that can get to work, and
And usually we're actually able to stay late.
there's several companies in town, they hire a lot of veterans, and like they say, the people who go out at 9 o'clock to a farm to put on a new tire for a farmer,
Yep.
I can call my veteran and he'll go out and do it. So economic development wise, this is a perfect marriage, you know, in even in Hutchinson, now being on the city council and working with other communities to talk about their veteran population and finding out what programs they have available to their veterans in their community. And the interesting part is we talk about veterans, this all transfers over to value in our civilian community.
Oh, exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
veterans volunteer, about 80% of them volunteer in their community. There's a value to that.
Oh, definitely.
They vote, there's a value to that. They do things for their neighbor. I mean,
Yeah.
heck, I've got some issues and I go out in the morning and my driveway is done. I don't know who does it. I'm not up that early, but I know it's another veteran who sometimes will just drive by and make a pass and pull out what's there because he knows I need the help.
So, how are the other communities going as far as what's going on with, well, like you said, the Welcome Home Vet program? And
Well, I mean, we've talked about the VBOC, the Veteran Business Outreach Center. We're in some final negotiations with them. They weren't sure how they were going to structure based on their budget and everything. So I think what they're doing right now is looking at having myself and my partner in Welcome Home Vet take that program on for Minnesota
Okay.
till we can get it more widely networked into the state.
Okay.
They've never really put a whole lot of effort into the state of Minnesota. I think the realization of, well, and both employees that they had were from over the Milwaukee area, so Minnesota, it's a tri-county area, Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin,
Okay.
which isn't real conducive to travel between them.
Yeah.
So they've always had that problem, especially in the winter. I mean, the last time one of the guys came here, it snowed like, he got here and it snowed and he was stuck.
Oh, no.
So we're moving with that to try to do outreach here through our Welcome Home Vet. We've been teaching Boots to Business, which is their program at the Nest. There's a lot of things going on at the Nest. I know in June we have Pete Hegseth with Fox and Friends is coming up to spend a couple days at the Nest, and Pete has been a great advocate for veterans, and it'd be fun to see Pete coming in. The Nest Fest is in August. And if you look at your calendar, I know Slayton's got the Vietnam Wall coming in this year. The Eagles Healing Nest has the Vietnam Wall coming in.
Wow.
Down in Slayton in August, they have, at their Murray County Fair, they have the old Steve Miller Band people coming in with, I mean, it's just so cool to see all these huge supporters. Billy Peterson, who was with Steve Miller Band, know him well. Asked him if he'd do a Vietnam vet kind of wall thing, and he was like, we're all in. And so they're going to go down there and do that, and we're trying to get them here in June, possibly. We've got the To Be Continued, which is the suicide organization. Tammy Dane, after losing her sister to mental health issues, has been pushing that for numerous years, and the training of the QPR training and the assist training and just awareness of suicide awareness. Pretty proud of the last year that 2 years now, we haven't had a suicide for a veteran in Hutchinson. And that's just because we're more diligent and more people are educated to know what. It's interesting how many calls you get at midnight saying, hey, I know somebody who, or this person is in a good place. And Christmas Eve, I was walking into church and got a call. Going to the 10 o'clock because I figured I'll have a little bit of peace, and walked in the door and the phone rang. So I went and sat with a veteran who was alone on Christmas Eve and sat with him for an hour, and we did our own church, and he just needs somebody to talk to. I mean, who wants to be alone on Christmas Eve?
Exactly.
And so we just do those things that are necessary. You know, we have the end of May, which is Memorial Day again this year, and it'll be fun this year because it'll be the first year we use, I think, the new speakers that are down in the Veterans Memorial Park here.
Oh, nice.
So Dave Skoog and a couple guys led that charge a couple years ago because we kept going to the events there, and it was, if the wind was a little bit, it was tough to hear.
Yeah.
So they actually had them permanently mounted, and they had Larry Dostal from Dostal Electronics go over there and design up something, and
Oh, wow.
you can't miss a word now.
Nice.
And they put a little portable system there, so all you have to do is slide it up, plug a microphone in, and plug it into the flagpost base, and you have a complete system that'll work in the community. So all kinds, like I said, all kinds of fun things here.
That is great. I know we had talked about before about people in wheelchairs, just as far as the snow is concerned.
Well, we're working on some, we had some issues with people in wheelchairs, and of course a lot of veterans are in wheelchairs, and the concern was, and we've had a lot of snow this year, is being able to get around, or you know, transportation. How do we get around when we're in a wheelchair? And it's interesting, because I said at the time, somebody was saying, well, why would we do something for people in wheelchairs? I said, well, we have bike trails all over the track. We have snowmobile, bike, four-wheeler, pedestrian, car, but we have a disabled community that need to be able to get around too. And one of our members of our community had a shovel on the back of his wheelchair, and I thought it was ridiculous that he has to shovel the end of a driveway or the end of a sidewalk to get across the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Or across the street. And many people in wheelchairs, and you know that, it's easier just to drive the wheelchair to the hospital, or it's easier to, you know, especially if you're alone and you can't transfer into a vehicle.
Exactly.
So we looked into emergency paths, and we're working with the ADA and some veterans organizations right now to put and this won't probably happen until next winter, till we get some planning and look at where we are with our needs for the wheelchair people in our community. What are the best routes, and do basically a snow emergency route, so people in wheelchairs can get from point A to point B to get prescriptions, medical care, food, or whatever it might be.
Now, if you are disabled or elderly and can't do this, or for some reason or another can't get to where who can you call?
Well, as a veteran, you can call Jim Lauer or Cassandra Kerrigan. We have a Beyond the Yellow Ribbon network in the county, and it's not as strong as it was at one time. But Cassandra was gone for a year, so it kind of, you know,
Yeah.
they're building it back, and it's done its purpose. But they will put out a thing throughout the area, basically saying we have a veteran who needs help. Usually within a couple hours, we have somebody who steps up and says, "Yeah, we'll go take care of it."
Nice.
There's enough people around town, driving around town, clearing driveways and sidewalks, and after a big snowfall. And we're not talking about the 1-inch snowfall. We're talking when we get those 12 inches,
Yeah.
and it takes several days to clean up, and the sidewalks aren't priority.
When you can't throw the snow that high because the
I don't
snow's
know.
already piled up to here. It's,
Yes, I told my wife the other day, I said, I love how these people have terraced their driveways with snow. I mean, it's, but we live in Minnesota, and we have to understand that, so we have
Yep.
volunteers to do that. So, yeah, there's a lot happening out here. I mean, we've added, and I mentioned at the Nest, we added a networking connecting class. We've added classes on defining character, finance classes, and their life skills classes. And as we add more, we're going to start putting them on Zoom, so veterans across the state, when those classes are held, can tune into them. And
Nice.
we're directing a lot of things towards our focus with Welcome Home Vet this year, and we've kind of changed our focus, because we used to, you know, everybody talks about veterans. We're trying to work with veterans and families. And the reason families are is because a lot of the kids are experiencing mental health issues because their dads or moms were deployed for a year. You know, they have discipline issues, you know.
well, we know military.
Yes.
You're affecting your whole family,
Yes. So, I mean.
which in turn actually affects the whole community.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can use perfect examples. I mean, if you have a disabled, you're in a wheelchair, that affects your family.
Yep.
You know, alcoholism affects your whole family. Suicide affects 150 people.
Yep, exactly.
So we're trying to look at not only reaching out recently, we've started not only reaching out to the, let's say, male veteran comes to the Eagles Healing Nest. Now we're trying to do family trauma and invite the family into the same kind of classes, or especially tailored classes or trauma classes or whatever they might need. And we talk about what all these classes, well, they're support systems. And
Yeah.
the more, we notice the more people who are using support systems, they're healing quicker and finding ways and solutions a lot quicker.
Exactly. And then those classes, you can do a lot of networking.
Yes, you
know.
can. And that's the interesting part is even like in this class last week or the week where I got my credentials for coaching, you know, it was such a diverse group in there. It wasn't only veterans in there. It's open to the public, so everybody, you pay money to go to this course because you're getting coached. But there was a young man from the up by Monoman from the reservation there, and we were having a discussion about Native American or indigenous people, and that they have the largest amount of per capita of people who serve in the military. They also have the biggest problem, and he said we have the biggest problem with fentanyl, and he said, and politics, because we can't say fentanyl's killing people because of the political. And he said this is getting ridiculous because our veterans are taking their lives. So he invited me up because I had some solutions for him, and he said, can you come up and present them to the elders and talk to the, because I told him, see, the problem you have is your veterans aren't brought together to discuss the problem in your community.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who can solve it if you get them, you know, to a point where they understand how to solve it. So let's meet with them, talk to them about what they're doing in the community, and that they want to rebuild this, and get them motivated. So yes, we have outreach. Now, what does that benefit me? I guess seeing more veterans who are taken care of, providing services for more veterans who, you know, serve this country. And we have to look at that, and also the diversity of our community. And I laugh all the time because even the instructor up there was like, well, we're supposed to talk about this and that and that. And he said veterans are just a weird breed because you all just get along with whoever anyway. And because culturally there are people who in coaching who don't want to work with other people because of their differences. And you know, as a coach, you have to decide whether you're, and the good part about being a coach is you get to decide if you're going to coach the team. You know, that's, so if you don't think you're going to agree with the person or whatever, but we need more coaches. Yeah. That's for sure.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for coming out here and explaining what's going on. If anybody has any time they want to volunteer or anything like that, should they get a hold of you?
Well, sure, they can go onto the welcomehome.vet. All they have to do is type into their web browser, welcomehome.vet. There's what we do and everything that we see there. Saluting Community Heroes, we're working on that for whether that's going to happen this year or not is still, you know, kind of figuring that out. But they can contact me, you know, most people have my phone number in the community, and if they don't, call the American Legion office or the VFW, someone will there have it. We can work with you, and if you're not feeling right and it just nothing seems to be going well and you're just tired and you just need somebody to talk to say, you know what, it's okay, we can move forward, and that's what we do. And by the way, last thing here is buddy checks. Check on your neighbor. If your if your neighbor's a veteran, they're alone. If you're a veteran, even veterans checking on your neighbor, your elderly or kids, you know what, it doesn't hurt to make a 2-minute phone call or just stop someone and say, and ask point blank, how you doing?
Exactly. And checking in with your neighbors even if they're not vets.
Yes.
Just to say hi, get to know each other a little bit.
Well, and
spread some of that community thing around.
The more we do that, maybe we can get rid of some of the other problems we're having where nobody likes anybody anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.